It's 1943 in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. By this time, the United States is deeply involved in World War II. You sent in your application for your next set of ration books. Maybe you've started your victory garden. Your blackout curtains are in place, and there have been a few air raid simulations. You're working at the Morley Company on Islington Street, which is known for manufacturing shoe buttons, but has now pivoted to gas masks. German U-boats are prowling along the Atlantic seaboard and have already sunk hundreds of Allied ships. Is it possible the enemy could come ashore? My name is Katie Sternberger, and I'm the archivist at the Portsmouth Athenaeum, a research library and archives located in the heart of Market Square in downtown Portsmouth. Part of my job is to make unique historical resources of enduring value available to researchers like you. Today, we're going to take a look at a really fascinating scrapbook that might spark your intellectual curiosity. But before we venture into the archives, we're starting our journey here at Fort Stark in Newcastle. Looking across the way here toward Fort Foster in Kittery, the scene with Whaleback Lighthouse so peaceful, it seems hard to believe that this was the site of active warfare over 80 years ago. You can actually see the remains of cribs that supported anti-submarine nets, which were installed across the entrance of Portsmouth Harbor. Minefields were established, and there were also underwater microphones capable of detecting the sound of U-boats. At the end of the war, there were, in fact, 4 U-boats that surrendered and were brought here to Portsmouth, as the naval shipyard provided adequate facilities to study the submarines and house the prisoners. So Portsmouth clearly had underwater defenses, but what about an attack from the air? Could a plane from the European theater make its way to the New Hampshire coast? World War I was the first major conflict where aircraft played a significant role, and air warfare became all the more important in World War II, with the technological advances that had taken place between the wars. For example, in January 1943, Franklin D. Roosevelt became the first United States president to travel by airplane on official business when he attended a conference with Winston Churchill in Morocco. Even from all the way across the Atlantic, a threat from the air seemed like a legitimate possibility, and civilians took steps to prepare. Civilians formed the Aircraft Warning Service in May 1941 so that volunteers could train as airplane spotters. The AWS operated as a civilian service under the United States Army Air Forces, which was the predecessor to today's United States Air Force. There were thousands of observation posts up and down the East Coast, and civilians, especially women, who were unable to serve overseas, found meaning in taking up the intensive training. One of these women who became involved in the Aircraft Warning Service was Miriam King Margison. She resided at 24 Marcy Street in Portsmouth with her husband, Richmond Stanley Margison, and her son, Robert. Around 1943, she started training in the Aircraft Warning Service and kept this binder containing all of her notes about the planes flown around the Portsmouth area during World War II. She details the many varieties of planes, their history, and the ways to identify each of them. Her labeled drawings are captivating. There are also black and white, as well as color illustrations. There are photographs. There are pieces of ephemera too, all carefully pasted in. The binder is arranged by airplane type with numerous tabs here along the right edge of the pages, each handwritten with the plane's alphanumeric designator. So this is an interesting piece of ephemera. It's a timetable for Northeast Airlines listing the times for the year 1943. I like this modernist, nationalistic sort of approach to advertising with an illustration on the front of the timetable, which features an airplane and the airline's primary stops in Boston, Bangor, Montreal, Halifax, and Presque Isle. The timetable highlights the airline's wartime service while maintaining their civilian flights as well. So they talk about buying war bonds and stamps. Taped on the inside front cover of the scrapbook, besides Margison's name and address, is a newspaper clipping about sailors who correctly identified a Japanese plane in the Western Pacific. Maybe this served as inspiration, showing how airplane spotting could really make a difference in the war effort. Margison's notes begin with an air map pasted to the front page, which shows the relative locations of cities around the world from a 33,000-foot ceiling. Next, Margison included a roster of her classmates, including their phone numbers, plus an 8-week class schedule that culminated in a test. The first thing Margison's training covered was the terminology of military aircraft. The acronym WEFT formed the basis for plane recognition, standing for wings, engine, fuselage, tail. Each part of the plane had unique characteristics to help with identification. Margison even saved her aircraft recognition school quiz. It features a blank illustration of a plane, and she has correctly labeled 10 out of 10 parts of an aircraft. Her instructor decided not to take points off for misspelling fuselage. Apparently, one of the take-home messages that must have stuck with Margison is an Air Force refrain, quote, "The best way to become a gold star on a service flag is to mistake an enemy plane for a friendly one." Basically, you need to know how to quickly tell friend from foe, or you're going to get shot down. While perhaps a bit cheeky, this message does underscore the seriousness of air warfare in the face of Germany's strong capabilities. According to Margison's scrapbook, the training also reviewed the history of military aircraft as used in World War I. The class compared statistics about the capabilities of bombers in World War I versus World War II. They also covered the key differences between German and Japanese planes. At the end of the binder, Margison saved a recognition school roster dated February 1943, which lists Margison as one of only 2 civilian supers in her class. Evidently, she was quite successful in her training and was possibly asked to provide further service. Originally enclosed in the binder was a blank application for enlistment for the national headquarters of the Civil Air Patrol in New York. Margison also kept a wooden plaque that says, AWS, U.S. Army Air Forces, Recognition Officer, with a blue and orange airplane wings graphic. However, by May 1944, the Aircraft Warning Service was deactivated by the military. It was the following month when the Allies launched the D-Day attack and began to gain the upper hand in the European theater, reducing the threat to the east coast of the United States. One of my favorite pieces from Margison's scrapbook is a poster from around 1943 that promotes the Consolidated Coronado PB-2Y, which was a patrol bomber. It was also called a flying boat because it operated both on and over the water. The plane's operations included anti-submarine warfare, like what we saw off the coast of Portsmouth. The poster includes illustrations of the plane and a poem, which reads as follows. My older sister, Catalina, took Axis shipping to the cleaner. She spoke to me of recent fights. Now Axis subs spend sleepless nights. She envies each new lethal change, my speed, my bombs, my cruising range. I'm Coronado, Navy's pride. Watch Hirohito run and hide. Twin rudders on a wide dihedral, hull as large as a cathedral. 4 engines and a stepped-up rear make Axis lookouts shake with fear. Margison's scrapbook provides such an exceptional perspective on a brief moment in history. It's like a time capsule. This object shows what it was like on the home front during World War II, how one woman went from mother to airplane spotter, what kind of instruction took place in the Aircraft Warning Service, and how civilians made an impact through aircraft recognition. Semper Vigilans. If you'd like to discover more about this great resource or other historical records from the archives, you're welcome here at the Portsmouth Athenaeum. Begin your search today at portsmouthathenaeum.org.